I died because a delivery truck lost a refrigerator on a downhill road, and the refrigerator was apparently faster than I was. When I opened my eyes again, 300 strangers were laughing because a crystal had just declared me the slowest summoned student in the academy. I had been alive in this world for less than 10 minutes. It was already going badly. A huge white track surrounded the central arena. Above it floated a crystal board with 300 names and 300 times. Mine was at the bottom. Raylan, 14.8 seconds. The number was bad, but it was not mine. I had been running the 100-meter test when Tovan moved into my lane. He was tall, broad, and already wore the red training coat of a sponsored student. He had finished his own test in 10.9 seconds. That was fast enough to make the crowd cheer. When my turn came, he stepped backward from the side of the track as if he had not seen me. His shoulder hit mine. I stumbled. One knee touched the ground. Then I finished anyway. 14.8 seconds. The instructor, Silas, looked at the number and lifted his hand. Next. I stared at him. He entered my lane. Silas did not even look at Tovan. The crystal recorded your time. That does not make it a clean run? A few students laughed. Tovan spread his hands. Maybe the road attacked him too. More laughter followed. I looked at the track, then at Silas. A second attempt takes 15 seconds. It also delays 300 students, he said. That was not true. There were 4 tracks running at the same time, but Tovan had a silver sponsor badge on his coat. I had plain gray clothes that the academy had given all unsponsored summons. The difference explained more than Silas did. Bottom group, Silas said. Group 12. The words appeared beside my name on the crystal board. 300 people saw them. Tovan smiled like a man who had just defeated a dangerous enemy instead of bumping a confused stranger 10 minutes after his resurrection. I said nothing. On Earth, I had learned that arguing with a man who had already decided to be unfair was like trying to teach a wall to apologize. The wall usually had better manners. The ceremony began 20 minutes later. That was when the real gifts appeared. Each summoned student stood inside a golden circle in the center of the arena. The academy called it an awakening. The first girl vanished from one circle and appeared 20 meters away. The crowd exploded. "Short teleport!" someone shouted. A boy received triple step. For 3 seconds, he could move at 3 times his normal speed. Another received flash dash, 10 meters in an instant with a 30-second recovery. Every good ability had the same basic rule. It was temporary. Power came quickly. Then it disappeared. Tovan entered the circle near the end. Golden light rose around him. The crystal announced Burst King. For 5 seconds, his speed could rise by 400%. The arena almost shook from the cheering. Tovan lifted both arms. He looked at me in Group 12 and grinned. Then my name was called. I stepped into the circle. The light touched my shoes. A voice sounded directly inside my head. My speed increased by 1%. That was all. The arena stayed silent for 1 beautiful second. Then somebody laughed. The laughter spread faster than any skill I had seen that day. 1%? Is that even an ability? My breakfast makes me 1% faster. A student near the front bent over while laughing. Tovan covered his mouth with one hand. He was not doing a very good job of hiding his smile. Silas looked almost embarrassed for me. Group 12 confirmed, he said. The crystal board added a small gray mark beside my name. Lowest physical score, lowest ability rating, no sponsor, no combat recommendation. If the academy had been trying to turn a human being into a sad little package, it had done excellent work. I stepped out of the circle. That was when the voice returned. 3 class paths were available to me. Infinite Runner, King of Speed, Master of the Step. I almost stopped walking. The voice explained the foundation before I chose anything. Every kilometer I traveled using my own legs would permanently increase my speed by 1 additional %. There was no reset. There was no time limit. There was no stated maximum. I kept walking. Nobody noticed my face. That was useful because I was smiling. The academy thought I had received 1%. They were correct. They simply did not know I could collect another one whenever I finished a kilometer. I chose Infinite Runner. Not because the name was impressive. It was not. It sounded like a job where the reward was sore feet. I chose it because its training requirements were simple. Move. That afternoon, Group 12 was led to a small field behind the main arena. The good groups had polished tracks, speed gates, enchanted shoes, coaches, and crystal timing pillars. We had dirt. There was also one wooden bench. The bench leaned to the left like it had lost faith in education. Silas stood in front of us with a thin clipboard. Group 12 exists for basic conditioning, he said. Do not compare yourselves with sponsored students. Your goal is to become useful enough for support work. A boy beside me lowered his head. Another girl looked close to tears. I looked at the dirt track. It was 400 meters around. 5 laps made 2 kilometers. 10 laps made 4. 25 laps made 10. The numbers were beautiful. Silas told us to jog 5 laps. I started slowly. I had no reason to destroy my legs on the first day. The first kilometer took me 6 minutes and 20 seconds. When I crossed the invisible mark, the voice spoke once. My permanent speed bonus became 2%. I almost laughed. It worked. I finished the second kilometer. 3%, the third, 4%, the fourth, 5%. The change was small. That was why it was dangerous. Nobody feared 5%. Nobody built laws around 5%. Nobody tried to steal 5%. I liked 5% very much. Silas dismissed the group after 4 kilometers. Most students went toward the dormitories. I did not. I walked to the far end of the academy grounds and back. 2 kilometers. Then I walked around the outer wall. 3 more. Then I found the public training road that circled the food hall, the library, and the low dormitories. 4 more. By sunset, I had traveled 13 kilometers since awakening. My speed bonus had reached 14%. 14% would not beat Tovan. It would not beat any serious speed skill. But 14% was permanent. Tomorrow it could be 30. Next week it could be 200. I had died once because I was too slow to escape a refrigerator. I did not plan to lose that race twice. Near sunset, the academy held a second baseline test for the bottom 3 groups. The purpose was simple. They wanted to decide who could earn training credits through campus work. The job was called seal running. Students carried stamped metal tags between checkpoints. Each completed route paid 2 credits. Most Group 12 students earned between 8 and 12 credits per hour. I needed money. The academy gave free dorm beds and basic meals, but shoes, extra food, medicine, and private training all cost credits. My borrowed shoes already felt like they had been designed by somebody who hated feet. Silas placed us in lines of 6. Tovan had no reason to be there. He came anyway. He leaned against a timing pillar with several students from Group 2. Still training? He called to me. I was worried 1% might be too much power. His friends laughed. I checked the route. 800 meters, 1 seal at the start, 1 gate at the far wall, then back. The total counted as 1.6 kilometers. Useful. Silas raised his hand. Go! 5 students sprinted. I did not. I started at a controlled pace. One boy with a dash skill disappeared ahead of me. A girl with spring step passed him after the first turn. I stayed third. At the 800-meter gate, the dash boy had already slowed. His skill was recovering. The girl was breathing hard. My lungs felt fine. More importantly, somewhere on the return route, the system quietly gave me another permanent %. I increased my pace. The girl looked over her shoulder. Her eyes widened. I passed her. The dash boy tried to activate his skill again. He gained 10 meters. Then his burst ended. I caught him 20 meters before the finish. The students beside the track went quiet. I crossed first. Silas looked at the timer. Then he looked at me. 1 minute, 37 seconds. Someone behind him said, "That cannot be right." Tovan stopped smiling. It was not a great time by academy standards. The top students could destroy it, but the worst student in the academy had just beaten 2 students with real movement abilities. That was enough to change the air. Silas checked the crystal again. Repeat. This time I smiled. You said the crystal records the result. A few Group 12 students laughed. Silas's jaw tightened. Tovan pushed away from the pillar. I will run him. Silas hesitated. That was interesting. He should have refused. Tovan belonged to Group 2. Instead, he said, 1 route. Exhibition only. The entire field turned toward us. There were more than 80 students watching now. Tovan stepped into the lane beside me. I will give you a 5-second lead. No. His smile widened. Scared? I do not want excuses afterward. That got a louder reaction than I expected. Someone whistled. Tovan's face changed. His reason for targeting me was simple. He had spent years preparing to become the Academy's speed star. His family had paid for trainers, equipment, and sponsorship. The ceremony was supposed to confirm that investment. Then, an unknown summon with no sponsor had appeared in the same arena. I was not a threat yet, but I was an ugly question. Tovan wanted the question erased early. Silas raised his hand. Go! Tovan vanished forward. Burst King was impressive. For 5 seconds he moved like somebody had fired him from a cannon. I looked almost stationary beside him. The crowd shouted. By the time his burst ended, he was more than 100 meters ahead. Then his speed returned to normal. I kept running. My permanent bonus had reached 17% during the seal test. 17% was not enough to beat him in raw speed. But Tovan had made one mistake. The route was not 100 meters. It was 1,600. His second burst came after a long recovery. His breathing became rough. His third activation was shorter. At 1,000 meters, I had reduced the gap to 60 meters. The students stopped laughing. At 1,200, it was 40. At 1,400, it was 20. Tovan heard my steps. He looked back. That cost him balance. I passed him 10 meters before the gate. The sound from the field hit me like a wave. Group 12 was screaming. Tovan tried one last burst. Nothing happened. Recovery. I crossed the line first by less than 3 meters. For half a second, nobody spoke. Then the crystal board flashed my result above the field. First place in the bottom group seal trial. 60 training credits awarded. Group 12 rank raised from last to 7th among support groups. My name climbed on the board. Not far, but it moved. Tovan bent forward with both hands on his knees. He looked at the board as if it had betrayed him personally. A boy near the fence shouted, 1%! The field exploded with laughter. This time, the laughter was not aimed at me. I did not say anything to Tovan. I collected the 60 credits. Public humiliation worked better when the loser had enough silence to hear everyone else. That night, I spent 18 credits at the food hall. The basic meal was free. I added a bowl of thick beef stew, roasted potatoes, 2 eggs, warm bread, and a plate of grilled chicken. Steam rose from the stew. The bread cracked when I pulled it apart. Butter melted into the center. After 13 kilometers of walking, 4 kilometers of group training, 2 seal runs, and the race, the food tasted better than any expensive meal I remembered from Earth. I was halfway through the chicken when someone placed a cup of water on my table. It was Elan. She was from Group 7. I remembered her because she had received a small balance skill called Light Foot. It was not powerful. But she had been one of the few people who did not laugh during my awakening. You ran 20 kilometers today, she said. More. I counted 19 before the seal test. I looked at her. She shrugged. I like numbers. That makes 2 of us. She sat across from me. You were faster in the evening than in the afternoon. I tore another piece of bread. People improve when they train. Not in 3 hours? I smiled. She did not ask again. That was the first reason I liked her. The second was that she pushed half of her roasted potatoes toward me without making a speech about it. After dinner, I should have gone to sleep. Instead, I walked to the empty dirt track behind Group 12. The moon was bright enough to see the white edge markers. I started another lap. Elan appeared near the bench 10 minutes later. You are serious? Yes. You already won. Today. I passed her again. She watched in silence. When I completed another kilometer, the system raised my permanent bonus again. 22%. I did not stop. 23. 24. My legs began to ache. That was my limit, not the system's. Important difference. I stopped at 25 total kilometers for the day. My permanent speed bonus had reached 26%. Elan handed me water. You got faster again. Yes. She stared at me for several seconds. Then she smiled very slowly. I think the Academy made a mistake. So do I. Neither of us knew that at the same moment, 3 buildings away, an Academy monitoring crystal had turned red. Silas was still in the administration room when it happened. A technician called him over. The man pointed at my awakening record. His effect did not reset. Silas frowned. What? The 1% increase. It is still there. The technician refreshed the reading. Then his face lost color. No. Wait. A second number had appeared beneath the first, then a third. The crystal was not showing 1% anymore. It was showing 26, and while they stared at it, the number became 27. The next morning, Silas tried to punish me with 40 kilometers of running. By lunch, I was grateful enough that I almost wanted to thank him. Almost. Group 12 stood on the outer endurance road before sunrise. The road circled the entire academy district. One full loop measured 10 kilometers. Most weak group students were assigned one loop. Silas gave me 4. He announced it in front of everyone. Raylan showed unusual endurance yesterday, he said. Today he will demonstrate whether it was real. Tovan stood near the road with Group 2 again. Apparently he had discovered a new hobby, watching me suffer. Ilan stood farther back with a water bottle in each hand. I looked at Silas. Does completion pay endurance credits? His eyebrows moved. Yes. How much? 5 credits per 10 kilometers. So 4 loops pay 20. If you finish. I nodded. Good. Silas looked annoyed. He had expected fear. I had heard free money. My legs were sore from the previous day, so I started slowly. The first 10 kilometers took nearly an hour. My total lifetime distance since awakening passed 35 kilometers. My speed bonus passed 36%. The second loop was easier. Not because my muscles had recovered. They had not. I was simply faster at the same effort. That was the first hidden consequence I confirmed. The bonus improved movement speed without increasing the energy cost at the same pace. If I chose to run at yesterday's speed, it felt easier. If I chose to use my full new speed, the effort returned. That meant I could train distance without always destroying myself. It also meant my daily range would grow as I grew. The ability was not linear in practice. 1 kilometer gave 1%, but each percent made the next kilometer slightly easier to collect. I did not need another skill. That feedback loop was enough. At 20 kilometers, some Group 12 students began running beside me for short sections. They shouted when I passed the starting gate. At 30 kilometers, students from other groups had gathered. A rumor had spread from the night before. The 1% summon was doing 4 endurance loops as punishment. By the 4th loop, more than 100 people were watching. Silas stood with his arms crossed. Tovan no longer looked amused. I finished 40 kilometers before noon. The road crystal recorded the result. 20 endurance credits. First place in Group 12 weekly distance. My permanent speed bonus had climbed above 60%. I bent forward, breathing hard. My legs shook. I was not invincible. I was exhausted. But the crowd did not care about the shaking. They cared that Silas had given the worst student in the academy an impossible punishment, and I had completed it before lunch. Someone from Group 10 shouted, "Give him another 40!" The road erupted with laughter. Silas turned around so sharply that his coat snapped behind him. I collected my 20 credits. Strength had increased. Money had increased. Reputation had increased. It was a very good morning. It became better when the Academy Courier office posted an open job. Emergency seal delivery. 5 checkpoints across campus. 20 credits per full circuit. The route measured 6 kilometers. Most students with burst skills hated it because the distance was too long for their abilities and too short to justify a horse cart. I signed up immediately. The clerk looked at my gray Group 12 badge. You know the time limit is 28 minutes? Yes. You must carry the seals by hand. Yes. No transport crystals. I do not have one. He looked at my shoes. One sole was starting to separate. Maybe do not die. That is already one of my goals. Ilan laughed behind me. She had followed me from the endurance road. The courier circuit began at noon. I carried 5 metal seals in a cloth bag. The first checkpoint was the library. The second was the East Dormitory. The third was the training hall. The fourth was the food warehouse. The fifth was the administration tower. Students saw me everywhere. That mattered more than I expected. Yesterday, my victory had happened on one field. Today, people watched me pass through the entire academy. At first, they recognized the gray coat. Then, they recognized my face. By the third circuit, people at the library gate were waiting for me. A group of students started counting aloud when I appeared. 3. I finished the third circuit in 21 minutes. The clerk gave me 60 credits for 3 completed routes. My total distance for the day passed 60 kilometers. My permanent speed bonus passed 80%. I bought new running shoes for 45 credits. They were plain black, reinforced at the toe, and far better than the Academy pair. When I put them on, I understood why rich athletes looked smug. Comfort was dangerous. I wanted more of it. The new shoes changed more than comfort. They changed my next decision. The courier office had one red notice pinned above the desk. Priority medical route. 6 kilometers. Delivery under 18 minutes. 40 credits. The normal circuit paid 20. The red route paid double because it included the hill to the clinic tower and a long stair section where transport crystals were forbidden around medical wards. The clerk saw me reading it. Do not. Why? Yesterday's record was 21 minutes. I ran the normal circuit in 21. The normal circuit is flat. So this one is training. The clerk closed his eyes for a moment. You people always say that before I have to write an injury report. A few students nearby laughed. Silas had followed us from the endurance road. Tovan stood with him. Silas looked at the red notice. This is professional work, not a game. I know. You are still Group 12. The room quieted. That sentence was supposed to end the discussion. Instead, the clerk looked at the public courier board. My name was already first among new students for the day. If he meets the route rules, he can attempt it, the clerk said. Silas's face tightened. Tovan folded his arms. Let him. That was not support. He wanted a public failure. By then, nearly 30 students had gathered around the office entrance. Good. Witnesses again. The clerk handed me a sealed red case. Clinic tower. Hand delivery. If the seal breaks, no payment. If you miss 18 minutes, normal rate only. I checked the straps twice. Then I started. The first kilometer was easy. The second climbed. The third hurt. The hill to the clinic tower was not dramatic. It was simply long and rude. My calves burned. My breathing became rough. But every kilometer still paid me twice. Once in credits if I succeeded. Once in permanent speed no matter what. That made failure difficult to fear. At the stair section, I slowed instead of jumping steps. Control mattered. The medical wards were full of people. Nurses, students, 2 instructors, and a line of patients all saw a gray Group 12 runner come through carrying the red case. One nurse checked the wall clock. Her eyebrows rose. I reached the delivery desk, handed over the case, received the return seal, and ran back. When I entered the courier hall again, the public timer stopped. 17 minutes, 42 seconds. The room went silent. Then the clerk laughed. Of course. The board flashed. Priority route completed. 40 credits awarded. New student medical route record. My daily earnings crossed 100 credits before the afternoon obstacle test even began. The students near the door started repeating the time. 1742, 1742. Tovan stared at the board. Silas did not. He stared at me. The problem was no longer one strange race. It was repetition. Every time he tried to place a ceiling over me, another public number appeared above it. The clerk handed me the 40 credits. Buy socks. I looked down. What is wrong with mine? They are soaked. That is temporary. So are feet if you treat them badly. Alan arrived just in time to hear that. She pointed at the clerk. I like him. I bought 3 pairs of thick training socks for 12 credits. It was the least heroic purchase of my new life. It was also one of the smartest. I ran 2 more courier circuits, another 40 credits, another 12 kilometers. By mid-afternoon, I had earned 160 credits in a single day, including endurance pay. Yesterday, I had owned nothing. Now I had new shoes, enough money for extra meals, and a small line of students watching the courier board to see my time. Silas saw the line too. That was when he changed tactics. He called Group 12 to the obstacle court. The court had low walls, balance beams, turning gates, and 6 hanging bags that swung across the path. It measured only 600 meters. Short. Technical. Bad for simple endurance. Good for proving that my morning result meant nothing. At least, that was what Silas thought. Speed is not useful without control, he announced. He made sure several other groups stayed to watch. That was his mistake. Public punishment created public witnesses. Public witnesses were becoming my favorite resource. Silas pointed at me. Run the course. I studied the first turn. My body could now move nearly twice as fast as it could before awakening. My brain did not automatically become twice as skilled. If I sprinted blindly, I would become a very fast patient in the academy clinic. So I did not sprint blindly. I used only part of the bonus. The first wall came quickly. I planted one foot and climbed over. The balance beam was easier than expected. That was the second hidden consequence. The speed bonus applied to small leg movements too. Foot placement. Recovery steps. Changes of direction. Not just straight running. I moved through the turning gates. One swinging bag crossed my path. I stopped. It passed less than a hand from my chest. Then I accelerated again. The crowd made a strange sound. Not cheering. Not yet. It was the sound people made when their eyes told them something their expectations did not like. I crossed the finish. Silas looked at the timer. 1 minute 52. Group 12's previous record was 2 minutes 31. I had broken it by 39 seconds. The students behind the fence shouted. Elan raised both hands over her head. Tovan stood near Silas. His face looked hard. Silas walked to the timer and checked it himself. Then he made another mistake. Again. I looked at him. Why? Verification. Does the second run count for the weekly ranking? A few students laughed before Silas answered. Yes. Then fine. I ran again. This time I knew the course. 1 minute 46. The crowd became louder. Silas's face became quieter. The crystal board moved my name again. Group 12 obstacle rank, 1st. Academy support course rank, 19th. I had climbed from last place among 300 students to the top 20 in one category in 2 days. That did not make me famous. It made me interesting. Interesting was more dangerous. Tovan approached the fence after the result. You are hiding something. Yes. He clearly did not expect that answer. What? My dinner plans. The students around us laughed. Tovan's ears went red. He lowered his voice. My family has a contract with the city team. I have spent 6 years training for it. You do not get to appear from nowhere and turn this into a joke. There it was. The real reason. Not hatred. Fear. His future had been built like a tower. I was a small crack in the foundation. I did not ask you to make me part of your career, I said. You became part of it when you raced me. You challenged me. His mouth closed. A student nearby laughed again. Tovan looked at the crowd and realized they had heard us. He left without another word. That evening, Elan and I ate at a small noodle counter outside the main food hall. The owner poured thick broth over wheat noodles, sliced roasted beef into the bowl, then added green onions, boiled egg, and a spoon of hot oil. I ordered 2 bowls. Elan ordered 1 and stole beef from mine anyway. I saw that. You are faster now. Stop me next time. That sounds like training. Then you should thank me. I had earned 160 credits that day. After shoes, socks, and the previous night's meal, my account still held 145 credits. It was not wealth. But 2 days ago I had been dead. Progress deserved respect. Elan wrapped a strip of cloth around one of my toes where the skin had split. You cannot collect distance if your feet fall off. I had reached the same conclusion. You say that like you were planning to test it. I like complete data. She shook her head. The warmth of the broth reached my face. Outside, evening rain tapped against the food hall roof. For 10 minutes, the academy, the rankings, and Tovan did not matter. There was only hot food, tired legs, and somebody who had seen me before the crowd changed its mind. Then a bell rang across campus. The main crystal board lit up. Students began moving toward the central square. Elan and I followed. A new challenge had appeared on the board. Official Academy Sprint Trial, 1,000 meters. Sponsored prize, 500 credits. Open to all groups. Tovan's name was already registered. Mine had been added beneath it. I had not registered. Silas stood below the board. He looked directly at me. Tomorrow, he said, we settle whether your results are real. I looked at the 1,000-meter distance, then at my lifetime total, 93 kilometers. My permanent speed bonus had reached 94%. I smiled. Tomorrow was still many kilometers away. I woke before sunrise because somebody was trying to turn my door into firewood. The pounding stopped when I opened it. Tovan stood in the corridor. He was already dressed for the official race. You have 3 hours, he said. For what? To find an excuse. I looked down the corridor. 6 students were watching from their doors. Tovin had brought an audience to threaten me before breakfast. Efficient. I already used my best excuse yesterday, I said. What excuse? 1%. Someone behind him laughed. Tovin stared at me for a long second. Then he walked away. I closed the door and put on my new shoes. The official sprint trial began at 10. That gave me 3 hours. I used 2 of them to walk and jog the outer road. Not fast. My feet still hurt. My left calf was tight. The dangerous part of my ability was not the system. It was greed. Every kilometer gave permanent power. That made stopping feel stupid. But injured feet could not collect anything. I kept my pace controlled and added 28 kilometers before breakfast. My lifetime distance crossed 121 kilometers. My permanent speed bonus reached 122%. I was now more than twice as fast as the body I had awakened with. The number looked ridiculous beside the original 1%. The Academy still officially listed my ability as low rank. That was even more ridiculous. At the food hall, I ordered rice, 4 eggs, grilled sausage, yogurt, fruit, and a bowl of soup. Ilan sat across from me with tea. You know normal people eat breakfast, she said. I am eating breakfast. You are eating a small family. They should have arrived earlier. She laughed, then she became serious. Tovan is desperate. I noticed. His father came last night. That made me look up. The city team contract? She nodded. If Tovan loses the sponsored academy trial, his family can lose the contract. They paid a lot to build his name before awakening. I understood. That did not excuse what he had done to me, but it explained why every small victory of mine looked enormous to him. A man can ignore a stranger. He cannot ignore a stranger standing between him and the future he was promised. I am not going to throw the race, I said. I know. Elan took 1 piece of sausage from my plate. You are also not going to injure yourself trying to prove something. I know. She looked at the amount of food in front of me. I believe the first sentence more. By 9:30, the central arena was full. The Academy had posted yesterday's results publicly. That had turned a minor trial into entertainment. Students crowded the seats. Instructors stood near the track. Sponsored scouts occupied a raised platform. The Academy's main ranking board showed 12 names. Tovan was first. I was last because my official category remained Group 12. The prize was 500 credits for first place, 200 for second, and 100 for third. 500 credits meant better food for weeks. It meant treatment if my feet failed. It meant I could stop borrowing academy gear. Money made power easier to collect. That was another part of the loop. Silas walked onto the track with a speaking crystal. Today's trial will verify all recent irregular results, he announced. He did not say my name. He did not need to. Half the arena looked at me. The race was 1,000 meters around an oval track, 2.5 laps. Tovan's Burst King ability was terrifying on the straights, but the turns mattered. He had to reduce speed before entering them or lose control. I did not have his explosive acceleration. I had something quieter. Every step I took was permanently better than the last time he had seen me. The 12 runners entered their lanes. Ilan stood near the first turn. Group 12 had gathered behind her. Somebody had painted 1% on a piece of cloth. I stared at it. I had not expected to become a slogan. Silas raised his hand. The starting crystal flashed. Tovan exploded forward. The crowd screamed. I accelerated hard, but not fully. My first goal was simple: stay upright. Tovan covered almost 200 meters before his first burst ended. He entered the curve with a huge lead. 3 other speed class students followed. I was 5th. Then the temporary skills began to expire. One runner slowed sharply. I passed him. Another used a second short dash and moved ahead by 30 meters. I kept the same pace. 400 meters. My lungs burned. 500. The first lap ended. I was 3rd. The arena noise changed. People had expected me to survive. They had not expected me to chase. Tovan looked over his shoulder. Bad habit. His second burst activated on the back straight. He pulled away again. But the activation lasted less than 5 seconds. He had used too much force early. At 700 meters, I passed the second place runner. The crystal board changed live. Raylan, second. Group 12 became louder than the entire sponsored section. Tovan heard it. He tried to accelerate before the final curve. His foot slipped half a step. He recovered. But half a step mattered now. I reached the curve 10 meters behind him. My legs were screaming. My heart felt like it was trying to leave through my throat. I had more speed available. Using all of it on a curve would be stupid. So I waited. 900 meters. The final straight opened. Tovan activated Burst King for the third time. Golden light flashed around his shoes, then vanished. The skill failed. Cooldown. His face changed. I used everything. The world narrowed. The white lane lines stretched beneath me. The crowd became one long wall of sound. 20 meters. 10. 5. I passed Tovan with less than 30 meters remaining. He made one desperate reach with his arm as if he could grab the air behind me. I crossed first. For 1 second, the arena was silent. Then Group 12 detonated. Students climbed onto benches. The 1% cloth flew into the air. Someone threw a shoe. I never learned why. The main board showed the result. Raylan, first. Tovan, second. 1,000 meters completed in 1 minute, 28 seconds. 500 credits awarded. Academy sprint ranking, 9th overall. My knees almost folded. Elan reached the track before anyone else. She caught my arm. Do not fall. I was not planning to. You are leaning on me. That is strategic standing. She laughed while the arena kept shouting. Tovan crossed behind us and stopped. He stared at the board. His father was visible in the sponsor section. The man's face was pale. Tovan looked at me. For the first time, there was no joke in his expression. You were slower yesterday. Yes. How much slower? A lot. His eyes narrowed. That is not possible. The entire front row was close enough to hear him. I pointed at the board. It seems possible. Laughter rolled across the seats. Tovan's jaw tightened. Then he did something I did not expect. He bowed his head once, not deeply, not politely, but enough. You won. The laughter faded. That one sentence did more for my reputation than another insult would have. Tovan had spent 2 days trying to make me look fake. Now he had confirmed the result himself in front of the whole academy. I respected that more than I liked him. Silas did not. He walked onto the track before the cheering ended. The trial is under review. That sentence killed the mood faster than rain on a campfire. Silas held up a crystal tablet. Raylan's speed readings show an abnormal increase beyond his registered awakening value. Until equipment error or outside enhancement is excluded, the result cannot be certified. The arena began to murmur. I looked at him. There it was. He had moved from unfair to desperate. If my result stood, every decision he had made since my arrival looked incompetent. He had placed me last. He had refused a clean baseline run. He had assigned punishment training. He had publicly called my progress irregular. My success was becoming evidence against him. Silas needed me to be fake, not because he hated me, because he needed to remain right. A senior academy examiner named Miro stepped down from the official platform. I had seen him only once before. He was an older man with short gray hair and the calm face of somebody who enjoyed rules when they worked and enjoyed breaking bad rules even more. What outside enhancement? Miro asked. Silas hesitated. That is what we need to determine. Then determine it now. Silas looked at him. In public? Miro turned toward the packed arena. The accusation was public. That was a very clean sentence. I liked Miro immediately. A portable measuring gate was brought onto the track. It checked active enchantments, borrowed artifacts, stimulant traces, and external support spells. I stepped through. Nothing. Again. Nothing. They checked my shoes. Plain reinforced running shoes. 45 credits. No enchantment. They checked my clothes. No artifact. They checked my blood through a small crystal needle. No stimulant. Every clean result appeared on the main board. The crowd grew louder each time. Silas grew quieter. Finally, Miro looked at him. Do you have evidence of cheating? Silas's face was stiff. The growth itself is evidence. No, Miro said. The growth is a result you do not understand. The arena erupted. Silas's own words from my first day came back to him from somewhere in Group 12. The crystal recorded the result. Then another student repeated it. Then 10. Then 50. The crystal recorded the result. Silas stood in the middle of the track while the entire academy shouted his sentence back at him. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Miro raised one hand. The arena slowly quieted. Raylan's victory is certified. 500 credits awarded. His academy sprint ranking stands. The board flashed. My account rose from 72 credits to 572. My name moved again. Official academy rank, 146th overall. That number did not look impressive until I remembered where I had started. 300th. In less than 3 days, I had climbed more than 150 places. Silas was removed from the track pending a review of his handling of my baseline test. He walked past me without speaking. The public humiliation was complete. I did not need to add anything. Then the city champion arrived. The gates at the far end of the arena opened. A man in a blue competition coat walked in with 2 officials behind him. The crowd recognized him immediately. Varek. The name moved through the seats. Even I knew it. His face was printed on the city speed posters near the academy entrance. Varek held the official 1,000-meter city record. 41 seconds. His ability, Blue Line, multiplied his speed by 6 for 8 seconds and recovered quickly enough to use several times in a race. Compared with Tovan, he was not simply stronger, he was professional. He looked at the board, then at me. You are Raylan. Yes. You improved by almost 30 seconds since yesterday's support course estimates. Something like that. He smiled. Not mockingly. That made him more dangerous. I came to watch Tovan. Tovan's face tightened. Varek continued. Now I am watching you. The crowd reacted immediately. A city champion had just shifted his attention from the Academy's sponsored star to the lowest-ranked summon. Tovan heard every word. His father heard every word. So did every scout in the arena. Varek pointed at the public challenge board. There is a city open trial in 24 days. Prize is 10,000 credits. Top 3 receive city licenses. 10,000. My brain repeated the number before my pride heard anything else. That was food, shoes, recovery treatment, and months of freedom. Varek watched my expression. You are thinking about the money. Yes. He laughed. Good. Athletes who say they do not care about prize money usually have rich parents. Tovan looked away. That joke landed harder than Varek probably intended. Varek extended his hand. Come to the city trial. I shook it. I will. The arena began shouting again. The Academy board added the event beneath my name. City Open Trial. Registered. My status changed from support student to licensed Academy competitor candidate. 3 days ago, Silas had told me my goal was to become useful enough for support work. Now the city champion had personally invited me to race him. That afternoon, I did not celebrate by sprinting until my legs broke. I went to the clinic. I paid 30 credits for a full recovery treatment. Warm light passed through my calves and feet while a healer complained about people who thought tendons were optional. Then I paid 120 credits for 2 pairs of better training shoes. I still had more than 400 credits left. Money had stopped being an emergency. It had become a tool. That changed my planning. I could afford recovery. Recovery meant more distance. More distance meant more speed. More speed meant better jobs and larger prizes. My one simple ability had built an economy around itself. That evening, Elan and I ate in a small restaurant near the West Gate. I ordered roasted chicken with crisp skin, a large bowl of rice, vegetable soup, grilled mushrooms, and sweet bread filled with warm cream. Elan ordered fish and spent most of dinner pretending she did not want my sweet bread. I gave her half. You are becoming generous, she said. I have 400 credits. So wealth corrupted you in 3 days? Completely. She smiled. Outside the window, students were still talking about the arena. I heard my name twice, then 3 times. It felt strange. On Earth, I had been ordinary enough that most rooms forgot me after I left. Here, strangers were debating whether I was a genius, a cheater, or a system error. None of them knew the real answer. I was a man who had found a rule with no ceiling. That was all. After dinner, Elan walked with me around the quiet lake behind the dormitories. I deliberately moved slowly. The distance still counted. That was important. I did not need to run every kilometer. Walking with somebody beside me gave the same permanent percent. Power did not always need to feel like punishment. We completed 4 kilometers before returning. My lifetime total reached 138. My permanent speed bonus became 139%. At the dormitory entrance, Elin stopped. 24 days, she said. Yes. How many kilometers can you collect in 24 days? I had already calculated it. Safely? Yes. At least 1,000. Her face changed. She knew enough now to understand what that meant. 1,000%? More. She looked toward the city lights beyond the academy wall. Then she looked back at me. Does Varric know? No. Does anyone? Not the number. She was silent. Then the academy's high alarm rang once. Not an emergency bell, an administrative signal. Every ranking crystal on campus turned blue. A message moved across them. Capital Movement Registry Inquiry received. Subject, Raylan. Reason, impossible permanent growth pattern. Elon read it beside me. The city trial suddenly felt much smaller. Somebody in the capital had noticed me after 3 days. 24 days later, I entered the city stadium carrying 3 pairs of shoes in 1 bag. I had learned something important during those 24 days. Speed was cheap. Shoes were not. My lifetime distance had reached 1,482 kilometers. My permanent speed bonus was 1,483%. I had also earned 6,800 credits by running academy courier routes, city document routes, and 2 emergency medicine deliveries. My academy rank had climbed to 31st. Group 12 no longer called itself Group 12 when I was nearby. They called it the 1% Club. Silas had been suspended from student placement duties after the Academy review confirmed that he had denied my clean baseline run without cause. Tovan had kept training. That surprised me. He stopped following me around and started running longer distances instead of relying only on Burst King. We were not friends. But he had stopped being stupid in my direction. That was close enough. The city stadium held 20,000 people. Most seats were full. Elon walked beside me through the competitor tunnel. We reached the warm-up hall. Varric was already there. For the first time, I understood why he had been friendly at the academy. Back then, I was interesting. Today, I was standing inside his stadium. That made me expensive. Varric came over. 1,400 kilometers, he said. I looked at him. You have good information. The courier boards are public. Not all my distance came from courier work. His expression tightened slightly. How much? I stopped telling people. That much? That much. He laughed once, but there was no humor in it. You know what happens if you beat me today? I get 10,000 credits. He stared at me. Elan covered her mouth. Varric shook his head. You really do think like that. It helps. My sponsor contract drops by 30% if I lose the city title. There was his motive, not cartoon pride, money, status, years of work. The same 3 things I was gaining were the 3 things he could lose. I am not asking you to slow down, he said. Good. I am telling you I will not. Also good. His smile returned a little. For a man with a useless ability, you are very annoying. I have heard that. A stadium official entered before we could say more. Raylan, registry representative wants you in inspection room 3. Elon and I looked at each other. The capital had finally sent a face. His name was Durrell. He wore a black coat with a silver line from shoulder to wrist. The Capital Movement Registry seal hung at his throat. 2 city officials stood behind him. Miro was there too. That made me feel better. Doral did not invite me to sit. He placed a document on the table. Your registered ability is a 1% permanent increase. Yes. Your current measured baseline is more than 15 times your awakening baseline. Yes. How? I train. His eyes stayed on mine. Do not waste my time. I looked at the document. Then ask a better question. One city official coughed into his fist. Miro looked at the ceiling. Doral's face did not change. What condition causes the increase? That was a better question. I had expected it eventually. The academy already knew the numbers changed with distance. Hiding the basic condition forever was impossible. Travel using my own legs. How far for one increase? 1 kilometer. The room became completely still. Darrell looked down at my file, then back at me. 1% per kilometer? Yes. Permanent? Yes. Maximum? None that I have found. One of the city officials sat down without being asked. Miro slowly rubbed his forehead. He had known most of it. Hearing the full rule aloud was apparently different. Darrell recovered first. He slid the document toward me. Sign. I read it. The registry offered immediate capital classification, a monthly salary of 2,000 credits, private training facilities, and medical support. In return, all my training routes required registry approval. All competitive appearances required approval. All distance above 50 kilometers per week required approval. I looked up. You want to pay me to stop walking? We want controlled development. At 50 kilometers per week. Until risk is assessed. I walked 60 before lunch on my second day. That is exactly why assessment is required. The offer sounded generous until the cage became visible. 2,000 credits per month was less than I could earn running documents now. More importantly, 50 kilometers per week meant only 50 permanent %. The registry was not offering a job. It was trying to place a speed limit on my existence. I pushed the document back. No. Darrell's expression finally changed. You misunderstand your position. No, I counted it. Miro made a small sound that might have been a laugh. Darrell ignored him. Unbounded movement abilities fall under Capital Safety Authority. My ability is registered and legal. For now. There it was. The threat was quiet because it did not need volume. Darrell could not beat me in a race. He did not need to. He represented people who could change the rules of the race. I leaned back. Am I disqualified today? Darrell's eyes narrowed. No. Then I have a race. I stood. He stopped me with one sentence. If your measured speed exceeds city safety limits, I can suspend your license immediately after the event. I looked at Miro. He nodded once. That meant Darrell was telling the truth. I looked back at Darrell. What is the limit? 8 times registered human baseline on an open public track. My current maximum was almost twice that. Darrell expected the rule to trap me. If I showed my full speed, he could suspend me. If I held back, Varek might win. It was a better attack than anything Silas had tried. I smiled. Thank you. Darrell frowned. For what? The number. I left. Elon caught up with me in the tunnel. What are you going to do? Run slower. She stopped walking. What? The limit is 8 times baseline. Varek can reach 6 times his normal speed with Blue Line. I know. He has a better base speed than you had. I know. And you are calm. Yes. She stared at me. Then her eyes narrowed. You already calculated it. Before we left the room. How close? Very. That is not comforting. It was not meant to be. The City Open trial had 3 stages. First, a 5-kilometer elimination run. Second, a control course through moving gates. Third, the 1,000-meter final. 32 competitors entered. 8 reached the final. Every stage paid money. 500 credits for reaching the second stage. 1,000 for reaching the final. 10,000 for winning. My eyes liked the event immediately. The 5-kilometer elimination was almost unfair. Most speed abilities were designed for seconds. 5 kilometers punished them. I ran at less than half my current maximum. That still felt absurd. At the first kilometer, 12 competitors were ahead of me. At the second, 6. At the third, only Varek. He used Blue Line in short bursts, then recovered while maintaining a professional pace. He was much smarter than Tovan had been. At 4 kilometers, the two of us were side by side. Varek looked over. Unlike Tovan, he did not lose balance. You are holding back. So are you. He smiled. Good. We crossed together. The stadium roared. The board gave me 500 credits. My city competitor ranking jumped from unlisted to 8th. The second stage was harder. Moving gates forced constant changes of direction. I had spent the last 3 weeks training exactly that. Not because I knew the course, because speed without control was a fancy way to meet walls. The gates opened and closed in patterns. I used small steps. The permanent bonus helped every correction. Left foot, right foot, stop, turn, accelerate. My body had learned to handle speeds that would have terrified me 3 weeks earlier. The crowd watched from above. Large crystals projected each runner onto floating screens. At one point, I changed direction so quickly that the tracking crystal lost me for half a second. The screen showed an empty lane. Then I appeared at the next gate. The stadium gasped. A second later, people started shouting. The tracking error replayed 3 times. Each replay made the reaction louder. I finished first. Varek finished second. Another 1,000 credits entered my account. Durrell stood in the official section. He was not cheering. I waved at him. Elan laughed so hard she had to sit down. The final began at sunset. 8 runners stood under the stadium lights. The 1,000-meter track looked bright enough to be daytime. 20,000 spectators rose to their feet. The city broadcast crystals floated above us. Millions could watch through public relay halls. This was no longer an academy rumor. Whatever happened here would become fact. Varek entered the lane beside mine. His face was calm. 8 times baseline, he said quietly. I looked at him. You heard. Durrell spoke to me too. What did he offer? Money if I helped establish your safe limit. I laughed once. Did you accept? No. Why? Varek looked at the crowd. Because if I need a government officer to make my opponent slower, I already lost. I respected him for that. Then he looked back at me. But I still intend to beat you. Good. The starting crystal rose. The stadium became quiet. I knew my limit. 8 times my awakening baseline. I knew Varek's best official time. 41 seconds. I knew my control margin. I had done the calculation 15 times. The crystal flashed. Varek became a blue streak. The crowd screamed. I moved. Not at full speed. Not even close. But far faster than I had ever moved in public. The first 100 meters vanished. Air struck my face. My clothes pulled against my body. The track no longer looked like a road. It looked like a narrow decision that kept arriving too quickly. I stayed below the legal limit. Barely. Varek finished his first blue line burst ahead of me. He recovered for seconds. Then used it again. Halfway. The live board showed us separated by less than 1 second. The stadium had stopped sounding like individual people. It was one continuous roar. 700 meters. Varek activated blue line again. I increased my speed. 7.2 times baseline. 7.5. 7.7. I could feel the difference in the air. The final curve arrived. Varek entered first. I took the inside line. 850 meters. 900. Varek's blue light faded. His recovery began. I had no recovery. That was the rule his world did not know how to handle. Temporary power was built around moments. Mine was built around distance. I passed him with 60 meters left. He fought for every step. So did I. I crossed the line. The timer froze. 37.4 seconds. For a moment, even the stadium seemed confused. Varek crossed less than a second later. Then the sound hit. 20,000 people shouted at once. The floating screens showed my time. 37.4. New city record. First place. 10,000 credits. City speed license granted. My total event earnings reached 11,500 credits. My city rank became first. The gray Group 12 coat I had worn into the stadium appeared on every screen beside the words, 1%. I stood on the track and tried to breathe normally. Varek walked over. He looked at the time, then at me. You stayed under 8. Yes. How far under? Not far. He laughed. Then, in front of the entire stadium, he raised my arm. The crowd became even louder. That was the moment Varek lost his city title. It was also the moment he stopped being my enemy. He had too much pride to hide from a clean defeat. His sponsors would cut his contract. His ranking would fall. He still gave the crowd the truth. I would remember that. Durrell came onto the track before the medal ceremony. He carried a measuring crystal. The crowd booed. He ignored them. Official safety measurement, he said. The result appeared above the track. Peak registered speed during race, 7.98 times awakening baseline. Legal. The stadium laughed. Not small laughter. 20,000 people laughing at the same man was a physical force. Durrell looked at me. You planned that? Yes. You were within 200ths of suspension. Yes. That was reckless. No. Reckless would have been not counting. The nearest broadcast crystal carried every word. More laughter. Dorell's face hardened. He had tried to put a legal ceiling over my head. I had stopped just beneath it and broken the city record anyway. Publicly. With the official measurement proving I had obeyed his rule. He could not erase the result without erasing his own authority. That was a better face slap than speed alone. The medal ceremony paid the money immediately. My account passed 18,000 credits when image rights and earlier work were included. I received a city license, a gold competitor badge, and access to the professional training road. My status had moved again. 3 weeks ago, I had been the last student in the weakest group. Now children in the front row were shouting 1% while holding paper signs. After the stadium emptied, Elin and I did not go to an expensive restaurant. We went to a street stall behind the west entrance. The old cook sold grilled meat wrapped in flatbread with onions, tomato, herbs, and hot sauce. I bought 4. He refused payment for the 5th. City champion eats free tonight, he said. Only tonight? He stared at me. Elon nearly choked laughing. We sat on a low stone wall. The bread was hot enough to burn my fingers. Juice from the meat ran into the sauce. The onions were sharp and sweet. For the first time that day, my body understood that the race was over. My shoulders relaxed. Elon leaned against me for a moment. You won. Yes. You earned more today than most students earn in a year. Yes. You became city champion. Yes. And you are eating your 4th flatbread. 5th. She looked at the empty paper beside me. When? I smiled. That made her laugh again. The quiet lasted until Dorell appeared at the end of the street. He did not bring guards. He did not bring another contract. He held a black envelope. I finished chewing before he reached us. Capital assessment, he said. He handed me the envelope. 60 days from now. What happens if I refuse? Your city license is suspended. What happens if I pass? Dorell looked at me for several seconds. You receive unrestricted national movement classification. That sounded useful. And if I fail? Your ability is sealed to its registered safe threshold. Elon stopped smiling. I looked at the black envelope. Who decides whether I pass? Dorell's answer came quietly. Orvin. I had never heard the name before. The street cook had. His hand stopped above the grill. Dorell continued. Director of the Capital Movement Registry. He looked at my shoes. Then at me. He has already asked the same question 3 times. What question? Dorell's expression was almost sympathetic now. How many kilometers can Raylan collect in 60 days? 60 days later, the Capital tried to measure my top speed and lost me between 2 crystals that stood 1 meter apart. The technician checked both crystals 3 times. Then he asked me to walk through them again. I did. The first crystal flashed. The second flashed. He relaxed. Good, now run. I did the first time. He looked at me, then at the crystals. Dorell stood behind him with folded arms. For the first time since I met him, he laughed. My capital assessment had begun 5 minutes earlier. My lifetime distance had reached 14,612 kilometers. My permanent speed bonus had reached 14,613%. At 10,000 kilometers, the system had changed my class title from Infinite Runner to King of Speed. That was all. No new skill, no attack, no teleportation. 1 kilometer still gave 1 permanent percent. The old rule was enough. During the last 60 days, I had turned money into distance. I paid for recovery every evening. I bought custom shoes before the old pairs failed. I rented the shielded city road for high-speed control training. I hired a coach to teach me how not to become a very expensive stain on a wall. The city also gave me an emergency courier contract worth 3,000 credits per week. Medicine, legal seals, disaster messages. If something had to cross the city immediately, they called me. My account had passed 47,000 credits even after training costs. My academy rank was first. My city rank was first. Children still shouted 1% when they saw me. Adults had started doing it too. Elon came to the capital with me after reaching Group 3 on her own. She refused when I offered to pay for her travel. Then she made me pay for dinner. Her principles were flexible around grilled meat. The Capital Movement Registry surrounded a sealed testing road called the Zero Track. It was a 100-kilometer loop with tunnels, sharp turns, moving walls, water sections, and long protected straights. Thousands watched from behind transparent barriers. Hundreds of thousands more watched through relay crystals across the kingdom. Varek stood with the city team. Tovan stood with the academy delegation. Miro sat beside the examiners. 3 months earlier, Tovan had knocked me out of my lane while the academy laughed. Now he had signed the public petition demanding that my national test be broadcast live. Losing had improved him. I recommended it carefully. The only man I had not met was Orvin. He arrived at noon wearing the black coat of the registry director. He was thin, gray-haired, and completely calm. He looked at me the way an engineer looked at a bridge that had begun running away. "Raylan," he said. "Orvin. You have accumulated more permanent movement growth in 3 months than our legal scale can display." That sounds like a scale problem. The front rows laughed. Orvin did not. "You believe this assessment is about your freedom?" "It is. It is about public safety." That was his motive. Silas had needed to protect a bad decision. Tovan had protected a career. Varek had protected a title. Orvin wanted to prevent one uncontrolled runner from turning a crowded street into a disaster. I could not call that stupid. I could call his solution dangerous. He held up a black sealing crystal. "If you fail today, your registered growth will be capped at 1,000%. The crowd booed. "If you pass, you receive unrestricted national movement classification, no growth ceiling. You will still obey local safety limits." That was the deal I had come for. The main board showed 3 stages: control, endurance, maximum speed. The first stage was a 10-kilometer corridor containing 1,000 sensor gates. Missing 1 gate meant failure. Touching 1 barrier meant failure. Breaking a turn speed limit meant failure. The second stage was the full 100-kilometer zero track in under 40 minutes. The national record was 48. The crowd immediately started shouting. Miro stood. "You are asking him to beat the national record by 8 minutes just to pass." Orvin looked at him. "Standard tests are for standard abilities. Harsh, but clear." The third stage was simple. 1 straight kilometer, no speed limit. I looked at Elon behind the barrier. She saw my face. "No," she called. I did not say anything. "You are counting." "Yes." "Stop looking happy." The crowd laughed. Orvin waited. "Do you accept?" "Yes." The zero-track gates opened. The control test punished exactly the thing everyone feared about me. Too much speed. I entered at only 3 times normal human baseline. The spectators sounded disappointed for about 10 seconds. Then the gates began moving. One closed from the left, another dropped from above. A third opened only after my heel touched a floor plate. I stopped, turned, ducked, and accelerated in short bursts. My ability had started as straight-line speed. Training had taught me the hidden consequence. The permanent bonus affected every movement of my legs. Foot placement, recovery steps, changes of direction. Stopping was still limited by my body, so I had practiced it more than sprinting. The board counted gates. 100, 200, 300. At gate 512, a sensor flashed red. The plaza gasped. I stopped immediately. Orvin raised one hand. The replay showed my foot crossing the line correctly. The sensor had reacted 0.004 of a second late. Durrell walked to the examiner table. "Equipment delay." Orvin watched the replay twice. He could have taken the easy victory. He did not. "Gate valid," he said. The crowd cheered. That told me something important. Orvin wanted control more than he wanted me to lose. Good. I could beat that honestly. 700 gates, 800, 900. The final 100 became a blur of short steps and moving walls. I never touched one. Gate 1000 turned green. 0 faults. The plaza erupted. The board gave me a first-class control rating. Orvin placed the sealing crystal on the table instead of holding it. Small victory. During the recovery break, Elan opened a food box she had guarded all morning. Rice balls filled with roasted beef, sliced eggs, salted vegetables, honey bread, cold fruit. I sat on the floor beside the barrier and ate. "You packed enough for 4 people," I said. "You eat enough for 4 people." Miro appeared and stole a piece of honey bread. "You are an examiner," I said. "I am confiscating evidence." Varek brought his own food and sat nearby. Then Tovan walked over and handed me a packet of salt tablets. "For cramps." I stared at him. He frowned. "I am trying to help." "I know. Stop making that face." Elan laughed into her tea. I took the packet. "Thank you." 3 months earlier, he had wanted me erased from the ranking board. Now he was helping me break a national record. The world changed quickly when people were forced to watch the truth. The endurance bell rang. The 100-kilometer track sealed. Pressure shields activated over the fastest sections. I started at a pace that would have broken my city record 2 months earlier. It felt controlled now. 10 kilometers passed in 3 minutes, 40 seconds. The crowd quieted. 20 kilometers, 7 minutes, 12 seconds. The record pace was already behind me. At 30 kilometers, the tracking crystals stopped showing smooth video and switched to position markers. At 50, the announcer gave up describing my movement and began reading distances. 54, 56, 59. The numbers arrived too quickly. The plaza began laughing in disbelief. The world had once laughed because 1% was too small. Now it laughed because the distance counter could not speak fast enough. At 70 kilometers, my calves tightened. I reduced speed. I had learned not to confuse pain with courage. A runner who ignored his body became a spectator with bandages. 80 kilometers, 27 minutes, 90, 31 minutes. I entered the final straight and accelerated. The last markers flashed past. 95, 97, 99, 100. I crossed the finish. 33 minutes, 18 seconds. For 2 seconds, the capital was silent. Then the barriers shook from the noise. The previous national record had been 48 minutes. I had cut almost 15 minutes from it, in a safety test. Varek laughed with both hands on his head. Tovan sat down. Miro pointed at the board like he wanted every academy instructor to remember where my name had started. The board updated. 0 track endurance record, Rylan. National provisional rank, first. Assessment reward, 10,000 credits. My account crossed 57,000. Strength, money, status. All 3 moved again. Orvin met me at the finish gate. "You have already passed the minimum classification score," he said. I looked at him. "So I can stop?" "Yes. Stop now and you receive national classification capped at 20 times baseline." That was a safe victory. 20 times baseline was enough to remain famous and rich. It was also a cage with nicer walls. I looked at the final straight. 1 kilometer. The same distance that had given me my first extra percent. What happens if I run? If your control remains inside the protected lane, unrestricted classification? No growth ceiling? No? I walked to the start. The crowd understood before Orvin announced it. They rose. The final track was 1 kilometer long and completely shielded. 12 measuring crystals lined the straight. No turn, no moving wall, no speed limit. For the first time since awakening, the world was asking me to move as fast as I could. I lowered my body. My legs were tired, but stable. The system's rule remained simple. 14,613%. 1 kilometer at a time. The starting crystal flashed. I pushed off. Sound fell behind me. The white lane became a solid ribbon. The first measuring crystal flashed. The second was already behind me before I noticed it. The crowd saw me leave. Then the track looked empty. No blue light, no golden effect, no teleportation. There was simply nothing for ordinary eyes to follow. Halfway. The shield shook from air pressure. 700 meters. 900. Finish. I crossed and used the long braking lane exactly as I had trained. When I turned around, thousands of people were still looking at the starting line. Then the finish crystal flashed. Every head turned toward me. The board tried to show my time. It blinked once. The technician attacked his console with both hands. The replay ran at 1/10 speed. It showed a shadow. At 100th speed, they could finally see me. The official result appeared. 0.94 seconds. 1 kilometer. Less than 1 second. The capital exploded. People screamed. Some stood on seats. Some just stared. Varek was laughing. Tovan looked like his understanding of speed had been personally damaged. Elan simply smiled. That mattered more than the screaming. Orvin turned to the technician. Accuracy? All 12 sensors confirm it. Track violations? None. Orvin looked at the black sealing crystal on his table, then at the thousands of witnesses. He had designed the hardest public test he could justify. I had passed it. Moving the goal now would destroy his own authority. Orvin stepped onto the platform. The crowd slowly quieted. Control stage passed with 0 faults, he announced. Endurance stage passed with a new national record. Maximum speed stage passed within track safety tolerance. He lifted a national badge. Unrestricted national movement classification is granted. The sound hit again. Orvin attached the badge to my coat himself. That was his public defeat. Nobody punched him. Nobody needed to. He had been forced to certify the result he had tried to contain. Darrell approached with a payment crystal. National record reward, 50,000 credits. I stared at him. He smiled. I knew money would finally shock you. My account passed 100,000 credits. 3 months earlier, I had owned borrowed shoes and the last name on an academy board. Now I had the first national movement rank, enough money to train without begging anyone, and a legal classification saying my distance had no ceiling. That night, Elan and I skipped the registry banquet because I had inspected the portions. We ate on the roof of a small guest house instead. Roasted lamb, buttered rice, baked vegetables, fresh bread, thick lentil soup, honey cake. The Capitol lights spread below us. For once, nobody was timing me. Elan cut the cake in half. You know everyone will challenge you now. Yes. You know the academy will put your face on the gate. Yes. You know Group 12 sent 23 messages during dinner. I muted them at 19. She laughed. What will you do tomorrow? Walk. She stared at me. Of course. 1 kilometer still gives 1%. You crossed a kilometer in less than 1 second today. That was running. How quiet is your walk going to be? Maybe 50 kilometers before breakfast. She threw bread at me. I caught it. Then the system spoke. I stopped chewing. Elan noticed. What? The next class title had appeared. Master of the Step. No new ability. No hidden reward. Only one condition. Travel 1 million kilometers using my own legs. I looked over the roads of the capital disappearing beyond the walls. 3 months ago, 1 kilometer had sounded annoying. Now 1 million sounded like a plan. Elan saw my face. No. I did not say anything. You are counting again. Yes. How bad? I smiled. The academy had laughed because 1% looked too small to matter. Tovan trusted 5-second bursts. Silas trusted rankings. Varek trusted a city record. Doral trusted a legal speed limit. Orvin trusted the hardest test in the capital. They all believed speed was something a person received once. A gift, a burst, a fixed rank. They were wrong. For me, speed was distance already paid for. And I had only started walking.